Twitter. If you have Thanks for listening to FYI Stillwater, where you will hear information about your local government you didn't know you need to know, straight from the source. Be sure to check out other news and information from the City of Stillwater at Stillwater. Hi, I'm your host, Sherry Fletcher, Director of Marketing and Civic Engagement. Today, my co-host is Tommy Marshall. Welcome, Tommy. You kind of jumped in last minute, right?
Yeah, it's been kind of a crazy day here. There's a lot going on.
So anyway, Tommy's going to be my co-host today, and I'm really excited about that. Tommy is the multimedia technician, and she's been with us since January, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It doesn't feel like it's already been like 7-8 months.
I know, we're gelling so good. So much going on here, and Tommy's helped us out so much about it. So what are we talking about today, Tommy?
Well, today our guest is Jory Stanley, the Assistant Chief of the Fire Department, and we're going to be talking about all things fire department. And we've got a couple basic facts here. So the Stillwater Fire Department is a professional municipal department comprised of 71 uniformed personnel and 2 non-uniformed, serving a jurisdiction of 30.2 square miles.
Wow, that's a lot of interesting stuff about the fire department. It's a big area. So we're going to be talking to Jory today, and like you said, we're just going to be talking all things fire department. So welcome, Jory.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So we start all of our podcasts the same way. We're going to ask you a lightning round of random but revealing questions. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, Tommy, go for it.
All right. So if you could change places with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
I would love to change places with a beach bum.
A beach bum. Yes. Oh my God, me too.
Yep, a hammock, a tent on a beach, and a beverage watching sunsets in the Caribbean.
That is my life dream.
It just sounds like the life.
Yes. I want to be one of those old women you see running in bikinis, and they're like so sun damaged, and everybody's like, oh my God, she doesn't have a care in the world. That's going to be me. Yeah.
Barefoot all day, every day.
Yes.
Listening to some music, stress-free.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, then just, the sunset. Oh, my God. Yeah, the beverage is not too bad either. So, awesome. Yeah, we got to figure out a way to get there.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, question number 2. If you could be guaranteed one thing in life besides money, what would it be?
Health.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Good health. Mm-hmm. And so much in our profession today, you see people that's unfortunately not in that good of health, or we wouldn't be seeing them on a call. So good health, and it would allow you to live a happy life, stress-free, without a lot of the problems that it brings you.
Yeah, you don't really think about it when you're younger, especially like Tommy's age even. You're young, carefree.
I do have my issues. issues. Yeah. I am broken in my own ways.
Yes, as she wears a brace.
Yes.
But it's so true. And when you start getting older, especially into my age and stuff, it's kind of like things stop working well. I had double knee replacement last year. And it's like, oh, how did I get old?
You look back and you don't realize you took those things for granted.
Yeah. Health is everything. Absolutely. But yeah, that's a good one and a wise one even. All right. Well, let's just kind of jump into the interview, Jory. So you're the assistant chief. So what was your career path and how did you get to that position?
Career path. I started at Stillwater Fire in 1995.
So you've always been a fireman?
Here in Stillwater, yes, ma'am. Started here in 1995 as a firefighter and an EMT, and back when we ran the EMS transport.
Uh-huh.
And went to paramedic school and went up through that route, became a medical officer. Then the fire department went from a medical officer to in the chief of training, and worked chief of training for a few years, and then promoted up to assistant chief. And here in 3 more months, it'll be 25 years. So
wow, it goes fast, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Wow. So, what was the impetus to become a firefighter? Was that something you've always thought would be a career path, or was it a surprise to you?
As you go through high school, you play team sports, and,
right.
and you want to be part of something big. And when I was going to college at the time, I just couldn't find, even though you was taking general classes, something that you felt like you was going to be a part of.
Right.
So then when you get into a service-driven profession like the fire department, police, something of that nature, military, you feel more like a team. And
right.
That's what ended up pulling me, and I gravitated over to that profession and started taking classes to help prepare myself to get a job.
Right. Because you are a very caring person. I've been on teams and stuff with you, and that service part really comes out in you. So the thought of like, I'm going to join a team of firefighters because you want to serve the public, and it is an important thing to do. But you guys do work very closely, and it is definitely set up as a team.
Absolutely. And for the ones who have families, I mean, they'll be the first to speak. You spend more time typically during a week with the firefighters and the people at your station than you do your own family.
Yeah.
And the way that our shifts are constructed today, we work 48 hours on and then 96 hours off if you're on a shift assigned to a station. And so, they're spending 48 hours, whether it's running calls, doing training, participating in whatever activities may be assigned for the day. And it just, you begin to get very close. You know everything about them, their families. Yeah, and it's tough, when something happens to one of them, they get injured, they get sick. Even when someone retires, you
Right.
spent so much time, it's like losing a family member.
Oh yeah, I imagine. I mean, and you have to depend on each other, so there's a lot of trust in there too.
Oh, for sure. Trust as far as to be able to get things done and get it done in a timely fashion. And you know what people's strong points are and maybe their weak points. And so you make up for each other with those.
Wow, I think that would appeal to a lot of people, maybe who are not necessarily had thought of that as a career path, but for the certain type of people, this is really a good career path, especially the ones that also kind of like the adrenaline, because I could see that as something that would appeal to a lot of people as well, because even though your day, I'm assuming you just don't know what your day is going to be.
That is correct. I mean, when you walk in that morning, you have an idea of what the day is going to bring with your normal activities that you have planned out. But that's what makes the job is the unknown.
Yeah.
The bell goes off and it may be a medical, it may be a fire, it may be a rescue, it may be a hazmat situation.
Right. And you just have to be ready.
Absolutely.
So you said that you served as the trainer for a while.
Yes, ma'am.
So what goes into training a firefighter, and is it like constant training, or once you learn it, you know it?
No, there's so many things that change so frequently in it, and there are so many different specialties within the fire department, and you have so many continuing education hours that you have to maintain, whether it be for hazmat, whether it's EMS, and some of the regulations that the state health department imposes for you to keep up. Some of it may be over inspections, some of it may be over rescue equipment and over firefighting, because it's not as easy as putting water on a fire. There's certain things that you can do to make a fire more survivable for others, rather than just busting in there and keeping the door open and going in and putting the fire out.
So I'm going to imagine the pandemic has altered your life, or is this something you've just always trained for?
No, I will not tell you that we've always, you try to be prepared for everything, but the pandemic has definitely opened our eyes to some things. It's caused us to think differently within our department, change some of our responses. We've actually taken over, added a 5th station, and using the Senior Citizens Center, we had 11 people at one station.
So that kind of spread out the groups a little bit more.
Yes, ma'am.
Just so that you guys, because you guys are living together.
Yes, and if somebody was exposed, then we don't take out 11 people or just a little less than half our shift. We may take out 3 or 4 and go through a quarantine period, but we're not losing half your department on a shift.
Yeah, the pandemic has changed. I mean, it's like, yeah, we know you're supposed to wash your hands. Yes, we know you're not supposed to come to work sick, but it really has put a spotlight on just how we've been living our lives.
Absolutely.
So I imagine the people that have gone through this pandemic and the professionals and stuff, this is a life-altering exercise.
Yes, ma'am. And from the very infancy of this and how we was approaching things to where we're at today, wearing the mask all the time around the stations and some of our responses, and we've actually went back and tried to reduce the risk of exposure and transmission to our personnel by reducing some of the EMS calls they respond on.
Right.
And so we only respond on certain types of incidents now, whereas we was running quite a few EMS calls.
Yeah.
We have scaled that back to reduce that exposure.
So, like in your stations and stuff, like here at City Hall, we have a crew that cleans continuously. We've kind of partitioned off the building, depending on what type of service it is, so that it really reduces groups kind of commingling. So it's a little bit more straightforward. You go in this door, you exit this door. You don't have access to other parts of the building. Did you guys have to take a fresh look at your buildings and how you, I don't know, even live in them?
Well, to some extent, there's only so much that we can do since they're living in those 24
Right.
hours. By taking people out of those stations where there's not quite so much contamination and spreading them out, we still clean all the time. With those guys, making sure that they're social distancing. We don't let groups. We used to get larger groups, 20, 22 people together for training. We have all went to basically a Zoom approach. And when we get on a call, even on an emergency call, we try to keep that commingling of groups because, I'm interested in how your life is going. And so at
Right.
a fire, we talk. And so that's been probably one of the most difficult is, guys feel as though it takes away some of that personable time that they have with one another by.
Yeah, I'm feeling that too. Because, like here, like we do make phone calls and we do, the virtual conferences just to check in on people. But it is different when you have that face to face contact and you're talking to somebody. I was talking to a librarian and they have fewer people coming in. And she was talking about how much she missed just shaking hands with people and just, are you okay? What can I do for you? So she's really missing that personal interaction that was part of the job that it's not quite there at the moment. So for service-oriented people, that really they feel it.
Yes, sure enough.
Well, let's talk a bit about how one becomes a firefighter. Do we have new people coming on all the time, or is it like pretty stable and it's the same people for long periods of time?
For the most part, it's the same people for extended periods of time, and typically the way that is either somebody leaves for a job or retirement, and it will cause a vacancy. And so it will cause us to start going through the hiring process.
And what does that look like?
The hiring process takes about 2 to 2.5 months with all the testing and everything and the verification, and it's a very rigorous process to get in to pass everything. For one to go into the fire service, what we look for is they will typically have what we call a Firefighter 1 certification and a Firefighter 2 certification. And they will take those either through a college or through a technology center or through OSU. Sometimes through OSU Fire Service Training, or they may come from a volunteer background into a professional paid department.
So what's the difference between a volunteer and a professional one? Is it the certification or training?
A lot of times they will have the exact same certifications. A volunteer department, they're just not getting compensated for doing the job the whole time. And bless every one of those individuals who does that, because they may maintain a full-time job and then they go in and put this additional time in serving their community. And they're going to have the same amount or the same certifications that we do here at Stillwater Fire.
Yeah.
But they're trying to get those on the weekends, after hours, whereas we may end up sending some of our personnel to get additional certifications while they're on duty.
Because I have several of my cousins do that. They live out in a rural area. They have regular jobs, but they still do, they serve in that capacity for these small communities. So, but you're right, it's like, it's extra. It's, they do it because it's the right thing to do, and they can do it. So to be a firefighter, does it require a certain amount of strength? Is it a physical job?
It is a very physical job, and whether it may be pulling a hose, lifting a body, rescuing somebody, pulling equipment off of a truck over your head, it does take a certain amount of strength and stamina. And you've got to have the cardiovascular to go along with it. because if you get to thinking about the gear, the pack, the heat,
Yeah, all the stuff that the wear, the gear looks very heavy. I mean, even the boots look really heavy.
the gear and everything, it does become cumbersome. And then if you put a hose on your shoulder and you're pulling hose, or you're carrying a chainsaw or climbing a ladder, those things, and then in addition to the elements that you're working in, and whether it's an extreme heat, extreme cold, wind, rain, those will end up causing additional strain on the body.
Awesome, because when you go up there, I mean, these look like fit people. It's so obviously that's who you want to come and take care of you
Absolutely.
if something happens. So in addition to the physical, because you kind of alluded to it with the certification and the medical background, so in addition to knowing how to put out fires and rescue people, you also have the medical part of it. So that's a whole different level of specialization within the firefighting world. Because you said you were a medic.
Uh-huh.
You're a medic.
Yep, I'm
the
a
medic.
paramedic,
Yeah.
and went to nursing school. So a lot of times you'll find that personnel, to keep up, you may not run enough of a certain type of call, or they want to continue keeping up with these advanced skills, and a lot of them may end up working EMS jobs away from the fire department to keep those skills up.
Yeah.
Typically in a different community, or maybe even your own community here with LifeNet. But the EMS side right now, we have 23 paramedics, and believe we have 37 advanced personnel. And then we have some regular EMTs. And you get in this business, you'll end up going through EMT class. And then after you complete that certification, then you can advance your medical career and either go to an advanced class or paramedic class, being the top in the EMS realm of certifications.
So there's lots of places to grow and become more of an asset by taking additional classes to help the community.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to have to ask about driving a fire engine. Do you get to do that?
I used to. I don't anymore.
I'm thinking that would be the thing. I want to drive really fast and go through all of the lights, like really fast, and everybody just stop for me.
Yeah,
That to me would be a rush.
we don't let our guys do that.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
dang.
So, no, one of those trucks. It's amazing how heavy
Yeah.
and how maneuverable they can be, and then how much power they have. So
Right.
you have to be very careful.
So it's probably harder to drive than it might seem.
Absolutely. And we was thinking about one of our trucks today, and it's right at about 43 feet long.
Oh my, that
And
is
then
long.
when you start,
And they can they back it up and parallel park those things.
they back it up, and it's amazing what that equipment will do and how heavy it is.
Yeah.
And how maneuverable. But should you strike something going through an intersection, those things typically have no forgiveness.
Yeah.
They're so heavy, and they sit so high up that typically whatever you hit does not fend too well against them. And so we're always telling our guys, as far as be cautious, be cautious, be cautious.
See, that alone looks like a skill set to me.
'Cause
I
you would
can
have-
barely drive my Nissan Versa.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing is 2 feet off the ground.
Yeah. But I think it would be fun to drive one.
Oh, yeah.
I think so. Parallel park that baby. Yeah,
don't
the
think-
skill that it takes for that.
For our city streets are equipped for that, those apparatus.
Uh-huh.
The thing is, when you get a call and you have to go out into rural,
Yeah.
in our rural response area, you have to try to get out a book and see your county bridges, what will hold that equipment.
Oh, wow.
Because that equipment is so heavy. So
Because that would change the path you
it
would
changes the path you got to
Wow.
take, and then some of that stuff on dirt roads and inclement weather, it causes problems as far as getting stuck. And so it does have its set of challenges once you get outside the city.
Well, I would even think going down some of the narrow residential
Fraternity,
areas.
sorority area.
Yeah, and they have all the cars out
Yep.
parked on the street. Because I imagine you run into, we can't get down this road, and you have to find an alternate route. I don't know.
One
I
of
don't know
the
what your
things-
options are.
That is unique to a college town is all the pedestrian traffic.
Yeah.
And especially what it brings in game days. And this year maybe have its whole unique set of not having as many people in town on game day. But typically on a game day, if we respond up around OSU, whether it's on a fire alarm, medical call, it will take longer, and whether people come off the sidewalk and if not watching, and they'll get into the path of the vehicle. So we have a Gator, a John Deere Gator, that has a medical sled on it, that a lot of times it's a lot easier to maneuver on game days up in that crowd now that we got about 2 years ago. So a lot of times on a medical response, we'll respond it just for safety.
So what if you can't find an alternate route to your destination? What happens then?
Just about every response, there is an alternate route. I mean, I don't know that we've had that. Should they come into that, a lot of times you can dump water to less your weight, and then once you get past that bridge, yes, and we've dumped those before on a tanker to get across a bridge, and then we get across the bridge, and then they can end up finding a source of water at that point.
Right, because I was just thinking about like where I live. I'm out in Stroud, of course, but there's 3 entrances to get to my house. One is down a back dirt road that is hillier than any hills you've ever seen. And then the other 2, you enter on a dirt road for one, and you go onto a weight limit bridge, or from the other, you enter from 66 onto a weight limit bridge. And that's the same. There's really no route around that.
Yeah.
So now you're starting to think.
I'm thinking, how safe am I?
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing you're buying a new house.
Yeah, it's a good thing I'm getting out of here. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jory. I think you gave us a lot to think about, and if people are thinking about a career in the fire service, they could just call you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we field calls, I would say just about every week. People looking for a career path and wanting to know what they need to do first, and whether it's here or at another department, and we can sure give them advice and steer them to some of these educational places, whether it be college, technology center, whatever it may be, and try to help them out. And
because there's a great need for them.
Absolutely,
and it's hard to finish all that stuff to get hired.
Yes, it is. Sometimes it can be a road that feels like it never ends to get to it.
But it's such a great and rewarding job when you get there.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll ask you to come back.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Because I'd like to talk a little bit more about the paramedic side of what you guys do.
Yeah, it's an exciting world.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to FYI Stillwater. If you like this episode, help us out and give us a like or share us with your friends.
Stay tuned for our next podcast.
If you have a question for City Hall, email news@stillwater.org, and in the next podcast, we'll answer a few of them. FYI Stillwater is available on our website at stillwater.org, Spotify, and just about anywhere else you enjoy your podcast.